Hey, welcome to an episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tomkins, and I'm a money coach and psychologist, and I help you to step into your next income level by rewiring your relationship with money so that you can build a regulated business that doesn't just make money, but actually feels good to hold. And today, I want to share with you, I want to talk through decisions because so often we have this thought process where we're operating on autopilot. We just roll through life a lot of the time. We don't really think about what it is that we do day to day for the majority. We think we do, we don't. And I say that with love and kindness, but we really don't. We just operate on autopilot. And I have the privilege of working with so many incredible women. And I see the patterns that play out in their life. And when I share these patterns back to women, they just kind of look at me like, oh my God, how is this pattern playing out again and again and again? I'm like, well, that's kind of what happens when we have our subconscious dictating our life. But we can change that. We've got to become aware of it. But change comes with a decision. Changing your financial reality comes with a decision. It doesn't just come because you say you want more money. I can, say I want more money, I want to lose weight, I want to eat more vegetables, I want to dye my hair pink. I can say all of those things, but that doesn't mean I have decided. Saying something doesn't make it a decision, it doesn't make it true. And there's a lot of power in making a firm decision. And what I often see is so many women who say they want to make more money. They would love to have a six-figure business. They would love to be making multiple six figures. They would love to be able to replace their salaried income. And they're also out there saying things like, well, I was invited to this speaking gig and they're not paying me. And that's just like so unfair. And those organizations should be paying female speakers. Like it's ridiculous that they're not paying us. I have a different perspective on those kinds of situations. It's not just about speaking, it is about just business, life in general. You get to choose. Just like, I don't know, I'm going with the speaking gig at the moment because that's the example that's in my mind. Just like that speaking gig doesn't want to pay their speakers, they can do that. And you get to choose whether or not you want to participate. You get that choice. But when we say things like, huh, they're not paying, that's unfair, that's ridiculous, and we all stand around in this little huddle going, oh my gosh, that's so unfair, I call bullshit on that because that's taking away your power to then make a decision. Because, yeah, I mean, imagine if you just spoke for free all year and didn't get paid for it. Like, that would impact your bottom line, right? Of course. And speaking is a bit of a tricky one because there's also weighing up other benefits. And look, I'm not going to get into the nuance of it, okay? But I get that sometimes there's other things that might come up, with speaking. Well, you get visibility, you might get money in other ways through doing the speaking. I get that. But from a decision perspective, but then that comes down to that decision, right? You get that opportunity to make the decision. Do I want to do this? Is it going to align with my long-term goals? Am I going to get some other benefit out of it? Do I still, knowing that I'm not going to get paid to actually speak, do I still want to do this? Yes or no? That comes down to you, but I think the resentment for a lot of us comes from feeling like we don't have control, we don't have agency, and that other people or other organizations or the opportunities that come our way, we feel like we have to say yes to, we feel like we have to latch onto them because if we don't, then that means that all of these worst case scenarios are going to happen in our business. We're not going to make money. We're not going to get clients. We're not going to be visible. We're not going to like, all because of this one thing. It's like, whoa, just slow down a little bit there. And so it then becomes a decision that we make. But because we make a decision on autopilot, we make it out of fear, we make it based on scarcity. I'm going to miss out. I'm not going to get the thing. I'm not going to have the opportunity. We're making it based on scarcity, fear, expectation, obligation. We're not tuning into our internal world, which means that a lot of the time we can then make a decision that's not necessarily aligned with the goals that we say that we want. So, decisions, really important. And I want you to be thinking about the kinds of decisions that you have been making in your business and how they, I guess, accumulate. Because the way that I see it, right, is like I have made a decision that I want to create a highly profitable business. And to me, it is going to happen. How? I don't know. How many breakdowns I'm going to have along the way? I don't know. How many times am I going to doubt myself along the way? I don't know. Probably a fuck ton. Like, I woke up this morning and literally cried because I was like, all I could hear was my dad's voice going, "You're a piece of shit." And so I did some somatic work this morning around that, released a bit of that emotion. Now here I am talking to you on the podcast, because I processed that, I released it, I made a decision to not let that inner critic dictate my day. If I had let that inner critic dictate my day, I wouldn't be here recording the podcast. I'd probably be in bed curled up crying. Decision. I made a decision. I made a choice and I pick myself. I pick my long-term goals. I pick the future that I want. And that comes from making these tiny little decisions every single day. But the first decision that you need to actually make is, do I want it? And am I going to commit to my future? Am I going to commit to the idea that I can have a different financial reality from the one that I have right now? Because unless you do that, and unless you choose that, you are going to find yourself sucked back in to all of this bullshit that is going to hold you back. And I don't want you to get sucked into that bullshit. Like, I don't want you to get sucked into all of that crap that's just going to take you away from your goals. Because if you don't make that choice to do your financial reality differently, what will happen is you will just keep getting sucked into the same old decisions that you've been making. Maybe they'll look a little bit different, but they're going to take you down the same path again and again and again and again until you say, enough's enough. I'm doing it differently. I don't want to do this way anymore. And I want you to honestly check in with yourself. Have you made that decision? What's stopping you from making that decision? I would hazard a guess that what's stopping you from making that decision is fear. Or these thoughts that kind of pop up that say, oh, no, I don't think you can. Or, no, that feels a little bit stretchy. Who do you think you are? And I totally get that. But the thing is, a decision, and this is what happens in our brains. Our brains are very creative. They're very smart. I had a client tell me the other day that our brains are really smart. And we laughed about it because we're like, yeah, our brains are really smart, but also bloody annoying at the same time because they are so smart, but at the same time, not smart enough to just let us go after our goals. We have to kind of work at it, which is kind of annoying. But our brains are smart. They want to keep us safe. They want to keep us protected. And so making a decision to do something differently doesn't mean that you, like, if you kind of liken it to, you might make a decision to, I'm going to use an extreme example here, and I don't know why I'm thinking of Mount Everest right now, but here we are. Let's just say you make a decision that you're going to climb Mount Everest. You don't immediately, well, you don't immediately fly to the base of Mount Everest and start climbing. You would train. You would put in effort. Well, first of all, you'd make the decision, okay, this is I'm going to do it. And then you would kind of start to take action, but you wouldn't go from making the decision to then going to I don't know, I'm not a mountain person, but the top of Mount Everest, right? Like there would be steps in between. But what we do is our brains kind of go from, oh, well, I've made this decision, so therefore now I need to completely transform absolutely everything. And we get overwhelmed with that because we're like, oh, that just feels too scary. Understandable. But the thing is, a decision doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. It just means that you are saying no to what you've tolerated before. That's it. That's all the decision is. No more. I'm going to do something different. And when you make that decision and it feels really firm, then you can start to build. I talk about these little micro moments where you start to build these little other like decisions after that. Those little decisions end up becoming your reality. But it needs to be a conscious choice. Because if we just put it out to the universe and say, I want blah, great, that sounds nice, doesn't actually land you the thing that you want. Because taking action will do that. But that's a whole another podcast episode. Because what I kind of want to focus on today really is that decision point and giving you a bit of space to think, well, why am I not making that decision? What is holding me back from making that decision? What would it be like to make that decision? Because when we uh, when we just kind of coast along, it feels easy. It feels familiar. It feels predictable. Like I've seen so many capable women stuck in the same spot, and they will be. They will be stuck in the same spot 5 years from now. I can guarantee you that. Not because they're not smart enough, not because they don't have the skills or the knowledge or the capability, because they absolutely do. But the reason they will be in the same spot in 5 years' time is because they did not make the choice. And oh gosh, it's so funny because like I can see it and I just, you can, what's that saying? You can drag a horse to water, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I can't make anyone make a decision. Only you can do that. And I think that is the really difficult thing, is because you have that capability, but are you going to make the choice? I remember for me, I I think I've spoken about this before. I remember being a kid and like seeing on TV, there'd be a lot of American TV shows when I was a kid, and then you'd have Neighbours and Home and Away. But as a kid, I loved the American TV shows, and they would always have these really big houses. And I don't know, I just kind of watched the American shows and I just thought it was really cool. I'm like, oh my goodness, I want that. And so I don't know how as a kid, but I got into my head that I wanted money because I wanted to be able to live in one of those cool kind of like American houses. But with my upbringing and the beliefs that kind of got installed for me through my own conditioning, through my parents' money stories and all of that kind of stuff, I didn't think it was possible for me. I remember being in year 11 and my business teacher said to me, Ellie, doing a business unit, we were doing, and we had to like implement our own kind of business idea. And I implemented a very risk averse business idea. And I remember my teacher saying to me, Ellie, you didn't take a risk, and that's why your business didn't succeed. But that stuck with me, that comment. And with all of the money stories and stuff that I had in my head, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be good at business. I'm going to suck at business. Um, so if I start a business, like it's going to be really hard. Um, and I had all of these stories in my head. But then I remember when there was a moment with my dad, and like money would just be this source of control with him. I'm kind of giving you the broad level details here. But money would just be a source of him trying to exert control, and money was a way that he used love, like express love. Not very healthy dynamics, mind you, but that was just how it was. And there was one time where he was in my house and got talking about money again because that was his go-to conversation topic. You're shit with money, Ellie. You need to be doing better with money. Don't go on a holiday. Don't waste your money. And I would be, defiant and like, well, this is what I'm doing with my life. I like my life. But there would still be this sense of approval seeking. And I remember just him being in my house, having this money conversation, him disapproving of whatever it was whatever holiday I was going on at that point in time, and him just saying to me, you will be nothing without me. You would be nothing without me. And I just remember in that moment, like thinking, whoa, that is the whole undercurrent of how you've perceived our relationship. You've always perceived me as this never good enough person, this never good enough, can never do anything right. Even if I'm doing exactly what you want, you're still going to find the thing that you'll pick apart. And it was in that moment that I realized, oh my God, I sound like Fran from The Nanny. Oh my God, I can't do it, her nasally voice. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh, holy shit. I've held on to this narrative. That's not mine. I don't know what it was about that moment, but I was like, oh, and it was like this shedding. And it was in that moment, well, maybe not exactly in that moment, but I remember that moment as just standing out. And then from there, it kind of shifted so much because I started questioning everything that I had picked up and believed. And I just remember making choices. I remember being very conscious about the choices that I was making. I wanted to start a business and I knew that it wasn't going to be a psychology, bit like a psychology practice. I didn't want that. Didn't want to have to deal with Medicare and red tape. And I love my trauma clients, but I didn't want to do that 5 days a week. I love working with my trauma clients. Like I really like seeing their shifts and stuff, but it was not sustainable. And to earn the money that I wanted, to live the life that I wanted, wasn't sustainable. And so in that moment, I made a choice. I am going to do something different. I choose me. I choose my financial reality. And nobody else gets to choose that for me. I get to choose that. And it was terrifying and powerful at the same time. And the interesting thing from that is after I made that choice, made that decision, I started telling people. And it was really interesting because when I made that decision and I started telling people, hey, this is my decision, I'm going to create this business, and had no idea what I was going to do with this business. At the time, I thought I was going to start a candle business because I was burnt out with psychology. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to go stack shelves at Coles at midnight. I'm going to start a candle business. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that something in my life had to be different. And I don't want that kind of breakthrough moment for you. I don't want you to get to that point where you're like, fuck, and your nervous system is frazzled. I want you to be able to make that decision now where you can say, you know what, I don't need a reason to decide other than the fact that I want it. Because fuck, I wish I did that. I wish I was like, you know what, I want it. I wanted it 20 years ago. How different my life would have been if I'd started my business 20 years ago. Wouldn't have been possible for a lot of reasons. I had a lot of stuff to work through, and my journey is my journey, and I'm glad that I'm where I'm at. But You don't have to wait to make a decision until you hit a breaking point. You can make that decision right now. The only thing that's stopping you is you. But then we come up against what our brain tells us are rational excuses. Well, I can't do it yet because my partner is focusing on their career, or my partner has to travel a lot, or I've got young kids and I don't have the time, or my business, if I were to change something in my business, then I wouldn't be able to have as many clients and I need the income that I've got at the moment. Excuses, they're excuses. And when we hold on to those excuses, they sound really rational in our brain. Like our brain is very far out, super clever, like super incredible, super logical. And we just hold on to those beliefs as though they're true. And they hook us. They hook us towards the path that we're already on. We get hooked, like, but is the biggest killer of your goals in your business. Yeah, I'd love to make more money, but that but is killing you. Um, you get to decide now. And that can feel confronting because sometimes that decision will mean things change and we get scared and we're like, well, I don't know what life will look like if things change, because we're jumping down that path of, well, if I make a decision, then um oh, we're trying to predict the outcome. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can kind of do right now in this moment right here is decide. So I'm really curious. Like, I am genuinely curious what you would decide, what you want to decide, and even how this conversation's kind of sitting with you right now. Um, so hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn. My handle's in the show notes because I'm so curious how this is landing. Because I just kind of think like we love to not take that responsibility for our decisions because it just feels fucking terrifying. And I totally get that. Um, and I'm really hoping that this is encouraging you to think a little bit differently about uh, the fact that you actually can make that decision and there's nothing stopping you other than you, which, yeah, confronting. So I'm super curious. I'm always curious. Um, but that being said, yeah, let me know on Insta. Sorry, I'm just kind of giggling in my own head here, thinking about that and like thinking back to just my experience of like making my own decisions and deciding that I was going to do things differently. And but also thinking about how incredible it has been to do things differently. Like I remember telling a friend that I wanted to have a seven-figure business, and she was just like, "Oh, really? Like, but you're earning good money now." Uh, yeah, I was earning okay money. Um, Still wasn't able to afford a house. I still wasn't able to afford the holidays that I wanted to go on. I was working, seeing a lot of one-on-one clients that was not going to be sustainable for me for indefinite, like, for a long-term period. There was a lot that wasn't working, but it was funny because in her mind, it was just like, but you have it good enough now. Why do you want to be like, I think the word that she used was greedy. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And that's your money story. And then I would talk to other people, like people that I trusted. And I remember one person said to me, just because you want a seven-figure business, Ellie, doesn't mean that that's going to happen for you. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? No, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't think you quite get what I'm saying here. This isn't up for debate. This is like it is gonna happen. There's no debate. There's no questioning here. They were just like, oh yeah, but it's a nice goal, but And I realized that even when you do make a decision, then and these are more like episodes, like there's so many more episodes that I'll speak to on this, I think, but because there's also and this is why we don't make the decisions, right? Because when we make a decision, then we have to deal with the discomfort of other people's money stories being projected back onto us. We have to deal with that discomfort. And these are the reasons why we don't make the decision. And this is where the nervous system work and regulation is so important, because I was regular. Oh, I was aware of my nervous system. I was aware of my responses. I was aware of my body, and I was aware of what was their stuff versus what was my stuff, and could kind of separate the two. And being able to do that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. You think I'm greedy? Awesome. That's your money story. That's not mine. That's not how I view it. And I remember saying to that friend, actually, I kind of uh, me being me was just like, okay, so you're happy living in this shitty little shoebox apartment that you don't even have a full closet, because half of your closet's taken up by a water heater and the other half of your closet is full of clothes, and you can't even fit all of your clothes in your apartment because of that. I'm like, what part of that sounds good to you? Like, is that the life that you want for yourself? And she was like, oh, well, no, but, and I'm like, that sounds like a you problem. That sounds like a you problem. I don't buy into that. Um, so anyway, my point is, like, I get that that this is where the regulation piece and the nervous system work comes into it, because when you are able to let that wash off like water off a duck's back, then perfect. You are able to regulate, which is why I've got Regulate to Riches, right? Because when you, which is my program that helps you be able to build up those skills to regulate in moments where you are in a situation that triggers you. Because those situations are triggering. People trigger the fuck out of everyone, like we all get triggered. I get triggered. I still get triggered. There are things like cold DMs. Oh my God. People who slide into my inbox, trigger that. I fucking hate it. I will block people when they do that. It is one of my pet peeves. I'm very much connection based. I'm not always the greatest at consistency on that, because I get tired. But for me, like, I value, anyway, that's a whole separate thing anyway. But my point is, we all get triggered. Being aware of it and then being able to regulate in the moment is the helpful thing that allows us to actually work through that, or to respond in a way that gives us a bit of a pause between our response. So I feel like I'm waffling. There's so much more that I want to say and that I want to share. But I think I'll leave it for a separate episode. And at the end of the day, though, what I really want you to take away from this episode is the decision to have the financial reality that you want is in your control. That is the takeaway that I want you to take away from this episode. And what I also want, there are two things that I want from you. Number one, hit me up on Insta. Tell me, what did you take away from this episode today? Or LinkedIn. Number two, leave a review of the podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps spread the podcast out to more women who need to hear it. Or if you don't want to leave a review, share the podcast with a woman who you think might benefit from these conversations. Those three things would be absolutely brilliant for getting the word out there about how we can shift and rewire our relationship with money. On that note, I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. I will chat to you again next week with another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast, and I'll talk to you soon. Until then, take care.